Welcome to our next Human Hacking Live with old friend and pal Jordan Harbinger. As always, every week, if you got questions, comments for Jordan, put them in the bottom. I'll make sure he sees them. We won't be asking anything super personal and embarrassing, so if you're here to do that, enjoy. But, we're just ignore those. Jordan, it's been a million years, man, since we had a conversation, so maybe we should start off with those who are here that want to know a little more about you. Who are you, and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm a talk show host, essentially, glorified sort of wannabe, journalist or whatever. But what I do now, the Jordan Harbinger Show podcast, is sort of my attempt initially to learn how the opposite sex works has turned into, one of the most popular podcasts in the world. So I interview psychologists, neuroscientists, former terrorists, undercover FBI agents, social engineers, whatever, what have you. And I try and dig into their habits, their behavior patterns, any drills, exercises, skills, techniques that they can teach the audience. So it's turned into quite a popular show, which to me is awesome, because to get to do basically to read books and talk to super smart people all day is a pretty good gig. And I used to be a lawyer, so pretty much anything beats that.
That sounds like a good gig. I mean, It sounds like a lot of fun. So let's talk a little bit about the transition to that. Like, how did you say, like, this is something I want to try to see if I can actually do this for a living?
Yeah, so initially I started off, like I said, I was an attorney on Wall Street, and I was pretty convinced that I was going to get fired. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I got to figure out how to work from home, because if you work from home, it takes people long enough to find out you're stupid because they don't see you as much. That was basically my master plan.
Wow.
And so I found one of the partners who was never in the office, and I kind of cornered him and was like, hey, how come you're never in the office? But you're a partner. Are you just working from home? How did you set up that nice work from home lifestyle? This is 2006, before we were all forced to work from home. And he's like, oh, well, I'm not really working from home most of the time. I'm actually out generating business for the firm. I'm bringing in like clients from people that I'm hanging out with during the day. And that was mind blowing. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to bring in business for the firm, because then they will never fire me. They might even make me a partner eventually if I can bring in business. And because I was like, look, I'm worried I'm going to get fired. And he's like, don't worry, you're not going to get fired. And he was, kind of like, but if you really want to make it to the top quick, bringing in business is like the surefire way to do that. Build a book of business. And I was like, okay, cool. How do I do that? And he's like, be cool, man. That's rule number one. Just be cool. And I was like, dude, I'm a lawyer. I can't be cool. Like, I've never, if I could have been cool, I would have started in third grade. Like, it's never been actionable for me. So I stopped doing, taking his advice, and I started taking like sales classes and networking classes a la Dale Carnegie. And I realized pretty quickly that I wasn't going to learn how to bring in a multi-million-dollar law deal from Goldman Sachs for my Wall Street firm from some guy who was wearing a sweater vest teaching Tuesday nights at the Learning Annex, So I was like, all right, back to first principles here. So I started to learn psychology, body language, nonverbal communication. And then that got me interested in dating, because I was like, wait a minute, all these things that are working for networking are like exactly what men who are attractive do, and women who are attractive do. So I started teaching men and women dating stuff, and I was in my 20s. And then I started teaching it in podcast form, because I found myself repeating myself over and over. And I was like, oh, I can just tell people to go download these episodes of this podcast instead of handing out CDs. And then I started noticing people were downloading the podcast from South Africa, Canada, not just Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I lived. And I was like, what? How are they finding out about this? And I started saying on the show, how did you find out about the show? As people in South Africa are downloading this, who are you? And the guy's like, dude, it's a podcast. All I do is search iTunes for, I don't know what he was searching for at the time. And he's like, and then I just downloaded and I listened to it. And I was like, this medium is so powerful. Remember, this is before YouTube, before Facebook. Actually, Facebook maybe just started to exist, but it was only for like Harvard, Michigan, UVA, Yale, and you like added your classmates, and that was it. It wasn't public. And Friendster was around, and I was like not interested in that.
That's old.
Old. So,
Yeah.
and Friendster, you added people in real life. You met people at a bar and you're like, hey, are you on Friendster? And they're like, yeah, add me. That was what it was. It wasn't like I'm going to go online and become some sort of online influencer. That
Yeah.
was not what happened. So the podcast was like this easy way for me to talk in a basement and then get it out to the world. And then I started to be like, what if I talk to my friend who's like a drug dealer, you know, and like get the inside scoop. So I would be like, I'll change your voice. And I would just run it through this like stupid plugin that was really low, you know, mess with his voice. And people were like, oh my God, that was fascinating. Nobody's doing journalism like this. And I thought, like, journalism? What are you talking about? So then I started to do more dating related shows and more, I guess you would call it, I guess now you'd call it like indie journalism, but back then it wasn't really called that. It was like, I don't know. It was me screwing around on my gear in the basement, and I just got really interested in it. I got picked up by Sirius XM satellite radio, and I was able to moonlight as a lawyer and do the radio job. And my law firm buddies were like, you know, you don't want to moonlight. It's a good way to get fired generally. But I remember one day I came back because it was a Friday night drive show and I had to come back to the office. And I was like, yeah, can I leave for a bit and come back? And they were like, okay. And then someone had spilled the beans and I found out they were like calling in, listening in. So that my firm found out I was doing the show and they were laughing. And I was like, big load off. So I was able to kind of moonlight and do that. And then in 2008, when the economy tanked, I just sort of said, you know, screw it. Let's give this like the old college try and do this full time and then try to find another job in the meantime. And I just never found another job.
Okay, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So then you went from focusing solely like on dating tips to now what you're doing now, which is like, let's understand how people make decisions. Let's apply it to all areas of life.
Yeah. So I got sick of the dating stuff pretty quickly because I was like, look, there's only so much we can talk about body language, nonverbal communication in the sense of like looking and being confident, dating. There's a lot of content there, but it starts to get old. And then also it was like, I met my future wife. So I met Jen and I was like, this is starting to get played out. I've been doing the same thing for like 5-6 years, you know, not the same thing, but I've been doing a lot of this similar stuff for like 5-6 years. So I decided to start doing more like, let's talk to my drug dealer buddy. Let's talk to my favorite author. Let's talk to, you know, so-and-so like exciting person on the show. And then people were like, hey, low key, I love these more than just your usual fare. And then they're like, oh, I shared this episode because my married friends are not interested in the other stuff. And then it was like, well, wait a minute. If I'm more interested in the kind of alternative episodes and people are sharing those episodes more, I kind of want to steer it in that direction. And then I split from my former company several years ago now. And I started the Jordan Harbinger show proper as just talking about whatever I want. And then that show really took off because it's just what I want to be doing. And so that's been kind of a blessing. And social engineer, like human hacking type topics are always at the top of my list because I love the psychology of it. And it's funny because now I give advice on Fridays on the show. I do 2 interviews a week, and then Fridays I give advice. I've started to see more, I guess, social engineering stuff come in where one person wrote in, I thought of you when I saw this because we had already planned to do this live. There was a person that had written in and said they're worried about getting fired because they got some email that said like, hey, payment didn't come through. Can you point me in the right direction? And he's like, I'm not the accounting person. And he forwarded this invoice to someone else in accounting. And then the accounting person was like, oh, well, this is from John or whatever. Yeah. So I'm just going to pay it because it's an internal person. And of course, what they do, they paid a $20,000 or whatever invoice to somebody who was not a vendor. And the reason they did it is the hacker, whatever, sent the invoice to somebody inside the company. And I'm still 50-50 on whether they knew that was the wrong person or whether they just emailed a ton of different people thinking, screw it. And since it then got forwarded by somebody inside the company,
it looked legit.
It looked legit. Now that everyone's working from home, there's not the whole like, hey, Chris, good to see you on the way out the door to the parking lot. I got this weird email. Or like, let me walk over to Chris's desk and ask him about this. We're all remote. So I just go, well, all right, Tim's in accounting and Chris is the guy who handles the vendor payments. And I got this email. I'm not going and emailing you about it or hitting the Microsoft Teams chat or whatever. I'm just forwarding it because I'm not sitting next to you or near you. So there's even less information available to everybody. And so the asymmetry, the information asymmetry that usually is kind of a problem for a con man because they're not in the office. Now we're all kind of on equal footing. Con man sitting at home working from home, me sitting at home working from home. I don't have in theory, I do have access to everybody because I could go into Slack or Microsoft Teams, whatever it is. But most people are just like, screw it, forward. You know, I'm at Safeway buying milk for my kid. I'm on my phone working from home. I have even less scrutiny over my communication now than before. So I think we're going to see, and I'm wondering if you've noticed an uptick in social engineering attacks. One, because there's a lot of people who lost their jobs and they're like, what am I going to do for food money? And two, because man, there's just so many more vulnerabilities now that everyone's working from home. Not just China spying on our Zoom chats, but somebody going, well, what happens if I send a fake email that looks like it's internal? They're never going to say, hey, is this a real email? Because they're not sitting in adjacent cubicles anymore. They're 13 miles away.
COVID has opened up the doors for so much more now. I mean, from smishing to vishing to phishing attacks, just it's gone through the roof.
What's vishing? Video phishing?
No, voice phishing. So they call you.
Okay, that makes way more sense. I was like,
and then you have phishing, and then you have smishing, which is SMS phishing.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Right. So the one that's going around now is the FedEx. You have a package that you couldn't get delivered.
I just got that. Just got that.
Everyone's getting that.
Man, I definitely don't have a package. And if I do, it's definitely not getting texted to my phone.
Right.
My phone number is not on anything. Like nothing. Somehow the political people still got it because they probably buy the right from the company. But like if you are hitting me up because I have $600, another one I got was I have unclaimed money at the
bank. That's a big one.
Sense.
Yeah.
Also my visa to the United States is going to be revoked. I got that message in Chinese.
You better run back to Mexico.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back to Hong Kong or wherever they think I'm from. And then and then I have a package waiting but what's weird is like they're not even trying to hide the URL. It's like you have a package waiting. Click on vxi769.co.net. And I'm like, that looks legit.
They're hoping that people won't notice because it's in a phone. You know, that they'll just click it. So a lot of your interviews on the Jordan Harbinger show seem like you were with the person. Now, how has COVID changed that since, we're just social distancing and not getting with people anymore?
Yeah, so I've been doing more remotes, well, only remotes pretty much. I have my home studio set up pretty well. So I actually bought, you can't see it now because I'm on my phone, but I actually bought this giant monitor that is a teleprompter. So it's basically one giant mirror and then behind it is a camera. So it looks like I'm looking right at the person when I'm talking. And then I use Squadcast, which is like professional level podcast recording gears, squadcast.fm. It doesn't Zoom, as you probably know, not only can people spy on you, but also it compresses the video and it compresses the audio. So it doesn't sound as good. So I've been using a lot of Squadcast and things like that to record. And I record my local video on QuickTime, and I just pray that the other person is tech savvy enough to also do that, which usually they are not. So but it's actually a lot nicer because I've got a 1-year-old at home. So I'm like, I want to do remote recording and not ever fly to anyone ever again, ever, if possible.
That is an interesting part, which I didn't expect to happen. I was on the road 70% of the time. And when this happened, I'd done traveling. But this month, I have the most speeches I've ever given in 1 month in October scheduled. And I don't have to go anywhere. I get to go 3 feet that way to my office. And I'm like, this isn't that bad. Like, I actually liking this.
Yeah.
I'm doing the same work, but I'm just not going anywhere.
I love going outside and reading and walking and stuff like that, but the fires here in the Bay Area have been pretty miserable, actually.
Yeah, that's been a pretty horrific part of the news spectrum lately.
I think that's going to result in some scams as well. Like, I don't see how it can't to sort of bring things back to social engineering. I'm like, they're with the PPP program, right? The Paycheck Protection Program. There were so many fraudulent things that happened with that. I'm sure you saw the stories of people that like fake faked 400 employees or 100 employees, and then the dude went out and bought like a Lamborghini.
Yep.
It's going to take them 5 to 7 years, I would imagine, to undo all the fraud that happened. And half those people are going to be out of the country or out of business at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. We were working on a couple cases that were the paycheck protection program fraud, and then also unemployment directly to the office. Like, I go and apply for unemployment under Jordan Harbinger's name, and I just say, deposit it in this account. And it's some bank in Hong Kong,
Right.
or Russia or something. And it's been working. I mean, they are stealing tens of thousands of dollars a month in like single attacks by just doing this of multiple different people. And the government's so inundated with requests. I mean, 11% or something, 12% of the country's unemployed. There's not enough people to handle the requests. So a lot of them are sliding under the rug because they're just getting approved.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because, you think, and it's a shame because we always say, oh, the government's so slow, they're so inefficient. And this is like the one time where they were like, all right, we'll untangle it later, get people the money they need, let's be a good government. And we're like, oh, shoot, we just sent $100 million to freaking Nigeria.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% because they moved so fast, they did so much good to help, and then they got kicked in the pants for it because people just took advantage of it so bad. Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of interest. So I'm sort of, I shouldn't say interesting in a positive sense, but I'm sort of waiting for, I guess they are interesting for you and I, scams around the fires. Like, you have damaged property from the fire. Click here to claim your money. And it's just like, I'll go, no, I don't. But like thousands of people will be like, oh, good, my fire insurance money is here. I just have to input my bank routing information, my social security number. I mean, it's only a matter of time.
I think it is interesting, but not from a like I can't wait to see people get scammed.
No,
but to constantly see how the scammers have advanced, over time. It's like I look at it like your story of your career and how you became so interested in how people make decisions. And I see the same thing in the bad guys. They're getting more and more interested because we're not seeing phishing emails that have terrible English anymore. It looks like they use spell check. They're using logos. They're making it more realistic. They're using things that are affecting our emotions, which is making us fall for even, really, really intelligent people falling for scams because all of them make sense now.
Yeah, no, I think I this is a couple years ago now, but I'm almost certain I fell prey to one of those Red Cross scams that someone just mentioned in the chat. There was, what was it? It was an earthquake. Maybe it was the Haiti earthquake now. It was like a while ago. And I remember going, oh, I'll definitely donate $10 because I saw the ad somewhere that was reputable. And then it was like, oh, people are running TV and radio ads with like a fake Red Cross. And I went, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about the fact that when you're running an ad, no one's vetting and making sure you're actually the Red Cross. They're just going to take your freaking 150 credit card, your dollars off your stolen credit card and run the Facebook ad that says Red Cross. I mean, now they maybe verify that, but before, I mean, buying a banner ad, you don't have to prove that you're Blockbuster Video. Those things are in the same era, right? They're just going to take the money and let you upload the ad. So I remember going, oh my God. And that's when I started really being careful about, I know this sounds dumb, but where I put my credit card even online, even if the checkout is encrypted, supposedly. So I started using privacy.com. Do you talk about that ever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like getting like generic, or not generic, but getting like burner credit card numbers.
Right. So privacy.com is this genius service. And I don't exactly remember how it works, but I want to say you attach your bank account via ACH to this on this website, privacy.com. And then every time you need a credit card, let's say I'm buying something that's $199, I can put $199 plus tax if needed on that burner credit card number. It'll generate it instantly, debit my bank account, and that credit card number only works for that amount. It never works again. It never can be charged again. It's just a generic sort of Visa or whatever it is. And it's perfect because anytime you sign up for something where they're going to auto debit you, they can't make the charge. If it's a scam, you lose your $10 or whatever, most likely, but then they're not selling that information to whoever. Well, they can, but it's dead. It's dead as a doornail. And so now I'm like, what I wonder is how is every credit card company not allowing you to use their own website to generate one-time use numbers? They must have fraud constantly. Why don't they
constantly.
do this? It can't be that hard to like sort of white label
I
your.
don't know. It's a good question because I was looking at that one and I know that even with privacy.com, you could set it so you could say, hey, this 199 can only be used on Amazon. You
Right.
can actually say that I'm going to limit it to this amount and location. So that way, if somebody said it was Amazon, but then they tried to charge it from hackers.russia, it doesn't work. It doesn't get because it can only be used on Amazon's website. So that's
Yeah.
that's that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's another one called Blur, but I'm not sure if that
Yep.
still exists.
Yeah. Yeah. You had a couple good compliments here. People said they always thought you were awesome because of post-production magic,
Ah,
but now you're awesome and we're live.
yeah, yeah. Look,
Yeah.
I cut my teeth in. Thank you for that, by the way. But I cut my teeth in live Sirius XM satellite radio because I was doing the podcast that became the Jordan Harbinger show for probably 6 to 8 months, and then almost that's immediate to me. Got picked up by Sirius XM satellite radio when I moved to New York, and so then it was like live callers. It wasn't just live radio. It
Hmm.
was, there are callers calling in and saying, "Hey, this crazy thing happened," or they're prank calling you, and your producer
Oh yeah.
tries to screen those calls, but I can call and say, "Hi, yeah, I have a really important question about online banking scams," and then the person gets on and is like, "Whoa!" Right? So
Yeah.
you can't do anything about that other than if you're a producer with his. My producer at one point had his hand on the hang up button because he worked for Opie and Anthony, if you remember those guys. So
I do. I do.
that was one of those shows where people would call and say horrific stuff into the phone the second they had the opportunity. So he had like a lightning fast uh, dump finger, which means you just dump the call and it plays like a soundbite or something.
I need that guy. I just did a radio show, and a late night radio show, and this guy got on and he started asking me about UFOs, like out of the blue, and I'm like, I'm a security guy, man. I don't know what you're talking about, but he was like, I worked outside Area 51. I know they exist. Tell me you believe they're real. And I'm like, is anyone gonna cut this guy? Like, and they just let it go. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know how to help you, man. I don't know how to help you. I just kept saying that, like, someone needs to like end this one. So do you
Yeah,
have any questions on security?
yeah. Meanwhile, the producer's like, I knew this was the wrong time to go down the
Yeah,
street to 7-Eleven
yeah.
and get a cup of coffee.
Right. Like, dang it, man. UFOs out of all things, really?
Yeah.
I guess at 2 in the morning, what are you calling into a radio show about, right? So you said you have a 1 year old at home. That's a huge change.
Yeah. So speaking of social engineering, it's kind of funny
Yeah.
looking at a 1-year-old and going, aha, this is an organism that essentially is like evolved to learn exactly how to manipulate my emotions. So like kids have, even at 1, have this interesting skill, I guess you would call it, where he can cry at like the precise pitch where my wife can hear it anywhere in the tri-state area, and then also like and is immediately alarmed, and then also can tell, oh, he's just frustrated,
Uh,
he's just tired, or oh my gosh, he fell and like hurt himself, let me go check and make sure he's not like in one of the planters upside down stuck,
right.
stuff like that. And then for me, he'll come up and be he used to come up and be like, I want this, and he doesn't say that, but he's giving me that look, and I'd be like,
Right.
no, I'm doing this, or you can't have it. And now he knows exactly like how to come up and be
Uh-huh.
cute, smile, grab my hand
Yeah.
and pull me in the direction of the thing. And I was like, wow, this learning curve was like days.
Yeah.
um,
Hours, days.
yeah
Yeah.
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 So it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that adult humans are really good at manipulating others, and that sociopaths who don't care about other people are really good. Because kids are, and I know this is a jokey thing that people say, but kids are in many ways, like they function in many ways like little, it's probably psychopaths actually, versus they're like next level sort of experts in manipulative, because they don't think like, oh, this isn't a very nice thing to do, or oh, if I take
Yeah.
this away from my sister or the other kid, like that's not nice, they're going to feel bad. They're just like, this is what I want right now.
Right.
And they're so cunning and manipulative that you just go, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I was Googling some parenting advice before, and someone had asked this question on Quora, what's the cruelest thing you've ever seen anyone do in real life? And all of the top answers, like dueling for top was like a prison guard who worked with like mass serial killer people. And then the other answers were like parents that were like, my daughter just did this to her brother 5 minutes ago and it was horrible. Like took the candy out of her mouth, threw it in the dirt, pushed her down, and then like poured milk on her. And it's like, and they're related. And it's like, yeah, kids don't care. They don't care. They just want what's good for them. And we basically as parents have to like, and as society have to like force that into people. So is it any wonder that somebody with bad parents turns out to be an adept con man? No,
Yeah.
surprise anyone.
It's interesting because, at that age, like 1 and under, they need to be this way to survive. Like I need to cry to tell you I'm hungry, or I need a diaper change, or you need to come and help me because I'm not able to do so. But I love that point you said, because if we don't train them as they grow up, they don't become useful parts of society, because then they just stay that way their whole life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, anybody who has, especially if it was the only way for them to survive at that level. So
yeah,
it's very it's very interesting to see this, because we see from guys like Joe Navarro who write books about dangerous personalities that dangerous personalities often it's more of a lack of good parenting than it is any sort of defect in that person's personality. I think that's what I'm trying to say here, because you really, all you have to do is leave someone alone and not socialize them, and they will turn out to be maybe not a total predator, but it will be damn close. Society and good parenting and good values and morals are like not necessarily something that is inborn, most likely. And I think the more neuroscience we see, the more we realize like most people are actually going to end up this way in the absence of molding, not because they were molded poorly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's fascinating to think that your career choice has set you up to be a really good parent.
So far, maybe. Jury is still
We'll
out.
find out. But but hey, I mean, it's prepared you at least to be ready for the challenge of having a tiny manipulator in the house who you'll need to help grow up to be a useful member of society.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's the challenge. It's like, don't spoil the kid rotten. Don't let the grandparents spoil the kid rotten, and also turn them into a productive member of society.
Yeah.
It's funny now to see, funny is always the wrong word for these. It's probably a bad way to start generic comments, but it's interesting to see how a lot of people, now that we're all working from home, are going to, I wonder if people are going to lose track of their actions on other people. Because you've been on Reddit, you've seen message boards the last 40 years. So have I, right? I mean, people on there are not as nice. And we see it on Twitter, and people go, Twitter's so mean. And I'm like, you think Twitter's mean? Oh my, you have not seen a private forum where people can be totally anonymous. I mean, Twitter's bad, but it still has some oversight. You can't be as horrible as you want. So I think that the work from home culture, where people are not necessarily even going to end up doing Zoom calls, once people find out that they master the technology and they can just use Microsoft Teams, Slack, whatever, and email and other remote tools, and they don't have to even talk face to face, man, I wonder if like empathy is just going to go down even further, because we're going to see people who go, whatever, I'm an independent contractor, and I don't even have to see Chris, so I'm going to send him this email from my phone while I'm at Safeway looking for milk, and it's going to sound horrible, and I'm just not going to care about my tone, because who gives a
we do this thing in our company where when we talk, I make the team come on camera, even though they don't like it. It was because I don't want to lose that element of what you just said, where we get to look at each other, use nonverbals as part of our communication, and forget that, that just because we're separated by force now, we still need to treat each other with empathy. So I think that's a great point to kind of end on. It's a really powerful point. I know most of the people here are your fans, but we're going to be putting this up on our page. So how can people find out more about you? Where can they go to to find out more.
The Jordan Harbinger Show is the podcast. If people, I didn't realize that my fans were also in here, so that's really cool. I was like, oh my gosh, so many of your fans know who I am.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's how Instagram works, old man.
Yeah.
So I should do more of these. But yeah, the Jordan Harbinger Show is the podcast. I would love it if people would check that out. And obviously, I'm at Jordan Harbinger on Instagram and Twitter, where people can be mean with reckless abandon.
Yeah, no, so when we go live, it notifies our people and your people
that
we're both live.
That's
and
great.
They can choose to come in. So
it's cool. It's cool to see people in here. I didn't realize that. Good thing I friggin' combed my hair this morning. As far as you.
Thanks a lot. This was great and fascinating. Awesome to talk to you again. It's been a couple of years since we actually got together and did anything fun like this. So
yeah, and I would say see you soon, but God knows when that's going to happen. Yeah.
Maybe on the internet.
Yes, maybe on the internet. Thank you very much. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan.